Princess Lila and the Secret Garden. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a curious and adventurous princess named Lila. Princess Lila loved nothing more than exploring the lush, verdant gardens that surrounded her castle home. But there was one garden in particular that had captured her imagination, a secret garden hidden deep within the palace grounds that no one had ever been able to find. One sunny morning, as Princess Lila was wandering through the palace rose gardens, plucking petals and humming a delightful little tune, she stumbled upon a peculiar-looking vine. It was thicker and greener than the other vines, and it seemed to be leading off in a direction she had never explored before. "How curious!" exclaimed Lila, her eyes growing wide with excitement. Without a moment's hesitation, the young princess followed the vine, weaving through the trees and bushes until she came upon an ornate, ivy-covered archway. And beyond that archway, could it be the legendary secret garden? Lila's heart raced as she stepped through the archway, hardly daring to believe her eyes. The garden was unlike anything she had ever seen before, bursting with the most magnificent flowers in every color of the rainbow, their petals glistening in the warm sunlight. Towering trees with twisted, gnarled trunks reached up towards the sky, their branches creating a natural canopy overhead. In the center of it all was a sparkling crystal fountain, its gentle bubbling filling the air with a soothing, melodic sound. "Wow," Lila breathed, twirling around slowly to take it all in. She had stumbled upon something truly magical, but as she explored further, she realized there was something different about this garden. The flowers seemed to move and sway on their own, as if dancing to an invisible tune. And was that a flash of color darting between the leaves? Lila's eyes narrowed as she peered closer, and suddenly a tiny glittering creature appeared before her, a fairy. "Well, hello there, young princess," the fairy exclaimed in a high, lilting voice. "I must say you're the first human I've seen in these parts in simply ages." The fairy circled around Lila, its delicate gossamer wings fluttering rapidly. "A fairy? But I thought fairies were just stories," Lila exclaimed, utterly delighted. The fairy let out a musical laugh. "Oh, we're very much real, my dear. And this..." The fairy gestured grandly around the garden. "This is our home, our secret garden, where we fairies live and play." The fairy's expression suddenly turned serious. "But I'm afraid I can't let you stay. Humans are not welcome here. It's far too dangerous." Lila's face fell. "Dangerous? But I don't want to leave. I've never seen anything so beautiful." She looked around the garden longingly. "Please, can't I stay just a little while?" The fairy considered this for a moment, tapping its chin thoughtfully. Well, I suppose if you promise to be on your very best behavior and not touch anything." Lila nodded eagerly. "Very well then, but be warned, the other fairies may not be as welcoming as I am." With that, the fairy darted off, disappearing back into the vibrant foliage. Lila spent the next several hours exploring every inch of the secret garden, marveling at the magical flowers and the flitting, glittering fairies that called it home. She was careful not to touch anything, as the fairy had warned, but she couldn't help but reach out to gently stroke the velvety petals of a large crimson rose. Suddenly, a loud shrieking cry rang out, and a swarm of tiny, angry-looking fairies appeared, swarming around Lila's head. "Intruder! Intruder in the garden!" they shouted in their high-pitched voices. Lila ducked and swatted at them, her eyes wide with fear. "No, no, please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." But her pleas were drowned out by the fairies' furious cries. Just then, a booming voice echoed through the garden. "What is the meaning of this disturbance?" A towering, regal-looking fairy with glowing golden wings descended from the treetops, her expression stern. The other fairies immediately fell silent and parted to allow her through. "Your Majesty, this human has trespassed in our garden," one of the fairies cried. "She must be punished." The fairy queen regarded Lila coolly. Is this true, child? Have you dared to set foot in our sacred sanctuary without permission? Lila swallowed hard, her mouth suddenly dry with fear. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I didn't mean any harm. I've never seen anything so beautiful, and She trailed off, wringing her hands nervously. The Fairy Queen studied Lila for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, to the princess's surprise, the corners of her mouth turned up in a slight smile. You speak the truth, child. Your wonder and appreciation for our garden is evident. She raised a hand, silencing the other fairies who had begun to protest. Very well. I shall allow you to remain, but only for a short time, and you must promise to obey our rules and not disturb anything. Lila's face lit up with joy. Oh, thank you, Your Majesty. I promise I'll be on my best behavior. The Fairy Queen nodded, then gestured for Lila to follow as she glided deeper into the garden. For the rest of the afternoon, the young princess wandered in awe, listening to the Fairy Queen's tales of the garden's history and the mischievous antics of the fairies who lived there. And when it came time to leave, Lila knew she would never forget the wondrous secret garden or the magical creatures who called it home. From that day on, Princess Lila would often return to the secret garden, sometimes alone and sometimes with the Fairy Queen as her guide. And though the fairies remained wary of her at first, over time they grew to accept the curious human girl who so admired their enchanted realm. And Lila, in turn, came to cherish the secret garden and all its mysteries, keeping its location a closely guarded secret, for she knew it was a place of true magic that deserved to be protected. For within those verdant walls, the impossible became possible, and the extraordinary was ever present, a hidden world of wonder that Lila would carry with her for the rest of her days.